And there'll be a bit of a hands-on session, so be good to buddy up with somebody, have a partner to work with. This is placeholder. Yeah, it would be nice if you these three options on this page are yours. What are you using?
In terms of school, venue. More and more being consulted or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So I'm not saying it's but I'm not saying yeah, but we just because we addiction money recently.
Can I see this chair?
Sure.
So, just before we start, can I ask you guys a question? There are a number of people in this room, so obviously some of you have been here. When you read the session description, what was it about it that grabbed your attention? Why did you choose this session over others?
Good feedback.
Good feedback. Yeah, feedback. Why is that important to you? Cool. So, I mean, I will probably, if you've been using Google stuff for a while, I probably will show you things that you're aware of. I'm going to maybe ask you to think about them in a different way. I want to hang a little bit of theory around what we're doing too, so that as you think about feedback, you know, you're thinking about the sort of underlying idea about why we feedback. So, hopefully you'll get something out of it. So, we're about just 3 minutes. Wendy, are you still there?
Hey, Betch, yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. Well, we might kick off. Are you okay to start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fantastic. Everyone in the room, can I introduce you to Wendy, the voice from above?
Hi, guys. Welcome from Portland, Oregon. How's it going in Adelaide?
Yeah, pretty good. Lovely day here. So you're in Portland at the
From
moment?
the past. It is Monday evening here, and it's Tuesday morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to the future. Well, at least Tuesday morning. All right. So
Awesome,
we'll kick
Betcher.
off.
We just started it for the folks around the world who signed up to watch you today, so no pressure. But I have on the screen our back channel that people can go on, todaysmeet.com/EdTechTeam if they want to chat and ask questions while you're presenting today. And if you want to sign in.
Meet.com/what? EdTechTeam?
Yep, you got it.
Yep. Okay. So if you guys would like to back channel, you can head over to this address there, todaysmeet.com/EdTechTeam. Just log in there with a nickname, and if you want to contribute to a back channel conversation. How many people are watching, Wendy? Any idea?
Well, we just started, but I think 125 people signed up to watch you, and this will get archived, so anyone in here who is watching you live can check it out later. Or if they just want to leave your session, Betcher, and go watch someone else's, like Jim's, they can go do that too. That's okay.
Sure. It's yeah, good to be doing it in Adelaide. Or Radelaide, as we like to say, right? Okay.
And as folks come in, if they can sign in, Betcher, if anyone wants to win a Chromecast, there's just a brief sign-in form. It's bit.ly/feedback, sign in. bit.ly/feedback. Sign in. Yep.
Feedback what, sorry?
Sign in.
Oh, sign in, right.
Yeah.
bit.ly/feedback sign in.
Cool. Yep, and that's just a quick form to, if you want to get entered in, we'll give away a Chromecast at the end of the session today. but just give and if you want a discount at an upcoming summit. So that's all for me, Betch. I'm going to be here on the back channel. Oh, go Radelaide. Somebody's already talking in the EdTech in the back channel. So I'm going to go ahead and mute and let you take it away, Betch, and I'll be online answering questions. So thanks again, everyone, for letting us peek in online today with a session on air.
No worries. So if you just mute, and if I need you, I'll give you a yell.
Sounds
or
good.
if you need to interrupt, just feel free. It's like talking to God. It's weird. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. So this session is called Tightening the Feedback Loop, and I thought what we'd do is we'd start off by just talking a little bit about the general concept of feedback, and looking at. I mean, there is some research. There's a lot of research on feedback and why it's important. But then I thought there's some great Google tools that you can use to sort of tighten up that cycle and get feedback being faster and more responsive. So that's kind of the goal today. I will head you to this website here. This every time I present at a summit, I put my stuff on this website called Summit Stuff, strangely enough. So if you head over to that address there, www.summitstuff.com, and you'll find it. And pretty much every time I present anything at a summit, it all goes up on this website. And so you'll find this session and pretty much every other session there as well. And this particular one you'll find under Essential Productivity, right at the front here, and tightening the feedback cycle right there. Okay. Just give me a thumbs up if that's worked for you. Beautiful. Excellent. So just a couple of things. Let's just talk about good quality feedback. Why do you give feedback to kids? So they can improve? Yeah. That pretty much nails it. Okay, well, we can go home now. So they can improve. Yeah, that's another good aspect of the feedback cycle as well. I've got some stuff here I just want to talk through for a couple of minutes, and I thought these slides here from this guy called Dr. Gavin Watson actually sums up the feedback thing really nicely with 4 really easy to remember points. That good feedback should be specific, and it really needs to identify what a student is doing well and identify what they can do to improve and to give clear suggestions about it. Okay, focusing on the big items is a really big deal. That you've seen those teachers where you get back the essay or something, it's got red lines through everything. It's really demotivating for kids. So sometimes, just best to focus on the big items, the things that the kid can actually improve on. The second thing feedback really needs, it needs to be actionable. It needs to actually indicate what they do next. What's the next step? Okay, you've done this. Here's some suggestions for how you improve it. Here's what you do next. So actionable feedback and what they can change for next time. You've all heard of the zone of proximal development, sometimes called the Goldilocks principle, that things should be not too hard, not too easy. Anyone ever played Candy Crush? Right? Candy Crush, what makes Candy Crush so brilliant is because it's right on the edge of it being just hard enough that it's challenging, but not so easy that it's boring. In fact, how many of you have ever finished a level with 1 candy left? Right? Yeah, it happens surprisingly often because it's right on the level. The people who build that game are geniuses in the way that they just manage to figure out how to make it just hard enough. And really the work that your students doing should be the same. It should be just hard enough that it pushes them a little bit beyond where they sort of feel they could be at, but not beyond where they're capable of being. And good feedback is about keeping them in that right zone there. Good feedback should be timely. Should be immediate and frequent. So often, you see kids getting feedback on stuff when it's too late to do anything about it. Like, should have mailed it to last week when they could have used it, right? But getting that feedback immediately and frequently. Is anyone using Google Classroom at all? Yeah? I don't know about you guys. We'll talk about Classroom a little bit later on. I'm finding that with Classroom now, I'm actually giving more feedback more frequently. It's closing that feedback loop. Is anyone else finding that? Yeah. I feel like I'm giving kids the best feedback I've given in my entire teaching career because Classroom is closing that loop for me. So giving that formative feedback, not just the summative stuff at the end. And finally, good feedback should be respectful. But it should be, not a master-slave relationship. I worked with a guy once who was a Marist brother. I asked him what the difference between being a Marist brother and like other kind of religious orders were. And I loved his answer. He said that the Marist order is all about like a big brother, little brother relationship, not a master-slave relationship or an apprentice-master relationship. And I really like that. And I think because I taught in Marist schools for so long, that became very ingrained in me, this idea that your students, while not your peers,
they are on a level with you that you can speak respectfully to them as people and not have this sort of power balance. Anyway, so good feedback takes that into account, the respectfulness. So that's just a couple of ideas there about feedback. Now, of course, the king of feedback is John Hattie. Has anyone actually read Hattie's work? Yeah, who's familiar with it? Who's not familiar with it? Okay, wow, okay. Now, we do have an international audience listening, and I'm sure some of them will not be, so I'm going to briefly recap. I heard one of Hattie's people speaking recently, and even though I thought I understood his work, when I heard it explained, it actually made a lot more sense to me. So for those that maybe aren't so aware, John Hattie has spent his entire life trying to get to the nub of one question, and that is what makes quality teaching? What makes good teachers, basically? And so in order to answer that question, what he's done is he's taken mountains of research, educational research, lots of studies, and created a meta-study of them. So he's taken hundreds and hundreds of studies into research about education and tried to quantify and collect them together and assign scores to different effects and measure the effect size. So, for example, you know, how much effect does homework have on students? Anyone know? Yeah, the answer is actually not much. Homework has a very small effect size. What about when you if you get a kid to change schools occasionally? Like mum and dad might be in the army or something and they move around a lot. Does that have a positive effect or a negative effect? It actually has a negative effect. And Hattie's come up with these ways of measuring different things that we do in a classroom. And he's got over 100 different effects that he measures over numerous studies. And I guess the thing about that is, you know, we all have opinions about what works in education, but at the end of the day, he's kind of the one guy I can point to where, you know, he's sort of, your opinion is interesting, but here's what the research says. Study after study says this. So basically, Hattie says that there are some things we do in schools where it takes kids backwards. Moving kids around a lot between schools is one of those things. There are some things we do in schools that have developmental effects. In other words, if we didn't do them, the student would still improve anyway by virtue of the fact that they get a year older. Okay, so we could effectively not do some things. Homework actually falls into that one. If we didn't give homework, kids, we wouldn't notice any difference because they would improve anyway just by getting older. Then there are some typical teacher effects. So if you're a reasonable teacher, there are some things you can do that have an effect, and so on. It goes up into this scale where you get into this blue area called the zone of desired effects. And stuff we do in that area actually makes a difference. And feedback falls into that area there. In fact, feedback is around here, 0.79. Okay? So feedback has a fairly large effect if you do it well. And I guess the key phrase there is if you do it well. I've put a little chart underneath there for some of the other effects that Hattie measures and to their different effect sizes. So you can see feedback there at, oh sorry, 0.73, not 0.79. My question when I saw his work was, what's the number one thing that makes a difference? And the answer is this thing he calls self-reported grades. And Hattie himself actually says that that was badly named. He should have called it something else. What he actually meant by that is students being able to define for themselves what it is they want to learn about and set their own learning goals. So they are putting themselves into that zone of proximal development. So when a student, anyone ever done one of those projects where you say to a kid, you can learn about whatever you want to learn about? Pick a topic and learn about it. I do one of those every year with my students, and it's amazing the thing. I don't know about you. I always find that the things they choose to learn about are things that I wouldn't have thought to teach them, things that they're interested in, not necessarily the things I thought they would be interested in. And the other thing that always strikes me about kids is when you let them choose what they want to learn about, they often set the goal far higher for themselves than I would have thought to do. I just had a girl who, in 5 weeks, taught herself JavaScript and HTML programming. Another girl who taught herself how to write music using digital music software that she'd never done before. She didn't even know about music before. But she said, I'd love to know how to do that. So she taught herself how to do that. And the goals that the kids set for themselves. So that's actually the number one thing that makes a difference in education, is kids being able to set their own goals, set their own expectation for where they want to be on those goals, and then to have a wise adult come in as the teacher and push them towards that expectation and a little bit beyond. And that's the key. That's what teachers do. So anyway, feedback's pretty important. If you want, there's a link there on this page here called The Power of Feedback. It's probably the best summary Hattie's work on feedback that I've read. So without reading the entire book on visible learning, if you want a great summary, that's an excellent article. Now, in his work on feedback, he talks about 4 different levels of feedback, 4 different types. And I've just summarised them for you here. So the first type is task feedback, where you're giving a student feedback on the task. So you might say things like, you need to include more information on X, Y, Z. Or your spelling of the word needs attention because it's frequently misspelled. Or you should remember that to start every sentence with a capital letter and a full stop. So things that are very task-oriented. I'm commenting, I'm giving you feedback on things in the task that are sort of really obvious, measurable, concrete things. The second level of feedback is feedback on the strategies used to carry out the task. And here you're talking about things like, you may say to a student, for example, you need to edit this piece of writing by attending to the descriptors so the reader is able to understand the nuances of the meaning. Or this page makes more sense if you use the strategies we talked about earlier. Or I like the way you've added appropriate supporting images. So you're talking about the ways, not just what the student's done, but the processes that the student has used to get done what they've done. Yeah? Level 3 is feedback on self-regulation, where you're feeding back on the self-monitoring processes that the student's using. Examples would be to say to a student, you already know the key features of the argument, check to see whether you've incorporated them. You know what to do. Are you doing it? Let's check on how you're implementing these things yourself. You may want to get a friend to look over your work prior to submitting it, just to check your main points are clear and understandable. Or your initial research raised a number of interesting points that have been overlooked. Perhaps you could look back through your notes to see if any additional points are worth mentioning. So you're giving feedback about the way they've done it. And the final kind of feedback that he mentions is probably the least useful of all, and that is feedback on self. And that's saying things like, this is great work, or good boy, this is great work, you've done a great job finishing this task on time. Those kinds of feedbacks are not really effective because they're not really specific to the task, they're not specific to the process of doing the task. It's kind of just general level feedback. Probably do less of that. So how did you summarise feedback before? It was great.
Help the student improve.
Right, help the student improve. So 3 questions, 3 important questions. Where am I going? How am I going? And where to next? And that's what we're trying to get to with feedback. I've stuck a video in there. I'm not going to play it for you right now. Has anyone ever seen Austin's Butterfly? Yeah, a few people have. If you have not seen this video, maybe don't do it now because I think you'll probably suck a lot of bandwidth out of the air. But it's a wonderful video. It's about 6 minutes long, where they talk about, Ron Berger talks about the process of working with young kids to improve the way they draw. It's a fascinating video. All right, let's get down to some practical stuff. I have a link here on this page called A Scary Halloween Story by Lily. Lily is one of our Year 4 students at school, and I just went into Hapara and looked through the Year 4 work, and I picked this one more or less at random and checked it with Lily to make sure she was okay with it. So if you click on that link, you'll find it will ask you to copy the document. And by the way, just a little tip for you, you notice that the URL for this link ends in the word /copy. Normally a Google Doc ends in /edit. So when you share a link with somebody, if you manually go in there and change the word edit to the word copy, then when they click on that URL, it actually asks them, would you like to make a copy? So it's a really simple way for a teacher to give a, quote, digital worksheet to a student by just changing that word copy at the end. Let's click on that and open that up, and that'll open a Google Doc for you. You've made a copy, so you are the new owner of this Google Doc. You have editing rights. You can do whatever you like in there. So this is exactly as Lily wrote this story. It's just a little short story about Halloween. Okay? What I would like you to do for the next few minutes is to just buddy up with the person next to you. You can work in groups of 2 or 3 if the numbers work better for you. And I'd like you to bear in mind these points that we talked about before. Giving feedback on the task, giving feedback on the process. Now I know that's going to be hard for you because you haven't taught Lily, so maybe you don't know some of the process behind it, but just intuit what you can. And again, self-regulation will be a hard one to comment on as well because you don't know the student. I can tell you Lily is a middle-of-the-road student who she neither excels at one end or she's particularly slow at the other end. She's an average kind of kid. And this was the story she wrote as a first draft. What I'd like you to do, talk to the person next to you, read through the story, And without touching your story just yet, just discuss with the person next to you what sort of feedback you might offer Lily on this story about how she might improve it. Okay, go. Everyone get the document okay?
For those of you who are joining us on the back channel, feel free to also grab that document and have a play with it as well. It'd be great to hear the sorts of things that you're doing. If you want to add any comments, just throw them into the back channel on todaysmeet.com/edtechteam.
Thanks, Betcher.
Okay. Let me interrupt you for a moment. Good work. Well done. Would anyone like to offer a suggestion for feedback that might fit the task level feedback? So something about the writing. Is there any task level stuff that you might want to throw in there as feedback? Anyone?
There's a few spelling mistakes.
Spelling mistakes.
Grammar.
Yeah. Spelling and grammar mistakes. That would be a great example of a task level feedback problem. Okay, they're pretty easy to address. How would you address that? I noticed the very first line of that story, she uses the word screamed and spells it incorrectly. How would you say to Lily, what feedback would you offer on that one? What would you actually say to her? Any thoughts? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I would actually indicate that there's a spelling mistake somewhere on that line.
Okay.
So I wouldn't actually say what it is or change it or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I want her to be able to start to notice those mistakes.
Yeah, okay.
I would actually be proud.
Now, I would probably say that that depends on Lily. It depends on the student.
Yes.
There are some students who that works with and some maybe it doesn't work so well. Yeah.
Betcher Jane here online has mentioned that the EA to take the vowels a walk-in, so noticing different patterns in spelling, that might be a good feedback comment to give.
Okay. Thanks, Wendy.
But also she's publishing on a document, so it tells her that there's a spelling mistake. So you need to be aware of that a strategy that the computer is telling you by underlining.
Excellent, excellent. That's great. So
yeah, they can use that every time rather than looking for the EA or the double E. There's a line there.
that's great. I'm going to repeat that just for the people listening. The suggestion was that because the document is actually indicating that with a red squiggly underline, that's actually a strategy that Lily can use now in the future that identifies a spelling error for her. So she can use that sort of on the bigger picture rather than fixing just that one mistake, but use it more globally. Yeah, great suggestion. Anyone pick up, now I know this is much harder for you because you don't know the student, but is there anyone that picked up on anything that falls into the process level? So things like, you know, the process she's used for writing. And I'm not an English teacher, by the way, so I struggle with this just as much as you do.
It's more of a story, it's not blowing logically in the right context, you know, scaffold, to sort of introduce it to the way you tell a story. This part comes first.
Right. Right, and you know what, I'm not an English teacher, so I tend to, and I guess this is true of all of us, it depends on our level of expertise to some extent. I ran this session recently, and there was a whole bunch of English teachers in the room, and they were talking about developing the story arc, and you know the way sort of the story unfolded to a peak and then climaxed. And like I didn't think of that sort of stuff. I'm looking at going, oh, you made a spelling error. So it kind of depends a little bit too about what expertise we bring to it, I think. But yes, that's a great example. What I would like you guys to do, because we want to build in some Google stuff here, right? So I'd like you in pairs to, I will write you, what's your name? Charlotte and Ingrid. So Charlotte is going to share hers with Ingrid, and Ingrid is going to share hers with Charlotte. And so you guys do the same thing, except your names aren't Ingrid and Charlotte, right? And what I'd like you to do is to use the commenting feature in Google Docs. Now let me show you where that is in case you haven't used it. So in this document here, if you want to make a comment on something, so maybe I do want to draw attention to this spelling mistake here, select it with your mouse, use the little button up the top that says insert comment, the one that looks like that, or you could go insert comment, you find it there as well. And when you click that, it brings up a box on the side where you can put a comment in for that student. And so what I'd like you to do in pairs is to share with each other. You'll have to ask each other your email address so you can share it with them. And then leave, let's say 4 or 5 pieces of feedback on that work. Okay. And then after the person's left the feedback, to then talk to each other about why you did that. Okay. So discuss the idea of how you're feeding back and why you're feeding back. Make sense? Okay. By the way, for the record, we have people joining us from San Antonio, Texas, Quebec, Canada, Bali, Pensacola, Florida. Nice work. Now, I'm making an assumption here that everyone in this room knows how to share a document. If you're not sure, because there may be someone who isn't sure, maybe you're new to all this, please just ask.
So you're already on it.
The shared one, hang on, I haven't. Minor adjustments. Maybe when the first step that's kind of no one will find it.
If you're joining us in the back channel, folks, you can share it with someone in the today's meet room. Make sure you give the commenting feature a try on something in the story, and let us know if you have any questions on that or ideas about how you've used it with writing before.
Yeah, how are we going?
You've done this is all I do. I would say see, I was writing it, also writing stuff, and
Who's made 4 or 5 comments for their partner? Okay, keep working. Get 4 or 5 comments in there. See how many primary teachers are in the room. Apparently quite a few. All right. The next little part of this role play is what I want you to do. Is I want to make a bit of a leap of faith here. I want you to imagine that you're Lily, you're the student, right? And your teacher has just given you a bunch of feedback on this story you've written. I want you to think about how that feedback, how you've received that feedback. Is there anything there that maybe the person has said that you feel is, I don't know, you would have preferred it phrased differently, maybe it came across as a little harsh, or maybe it's not specific enough, you want more detail on that. So what I'd like you to do, on the work that you've just received comments on, there is the ability in here, let me just leave a short comment here. Let me say this word needs attention, okay?
or spelling. Let's just say, I could probably make that a nicer comment, but I'm just trying to do it quickly. So the teacher's left a comment on that. You as the student can hover over that and click on that and reply. So I might say, let's say I'm not sure, still not sure why it's a mistake. How should I fix this? Okay. Now they're both me in this case because I'm just working on the same document. In your role play, you will actually be the student. So I want you to try out this feature that only exists in Google Docs. This does not exist in other platforms like Microsoft Word, for example. Although in Word you can actually leave comments on a document, you can't have conversations around the comments. So you can leave a comment for a student in Google Docs, and the student can respond. So in your little role-playing pairs there, what I'd like you to do is to, as the student who receives some comment, think about the feedback you just got. Does it need clarification? Does it need more detail? Do you want to ask a question about the feedback you've received? Use the commenting feature to respond back. So you know how this works.
Wait.
Yes.
So the same issue. Yeah, Jess has got all the comments showing. I've just shared. I'm not seeing the comments.
Are you using Chrome?
Oh yeah, sorry, that was true. You can turn that off. I tried opening comments in thread, like in the I wanted. I can see that she's in there. I can do that, but then I said, so is it something to see how there's all this highlight? That's all that was you can use the highlight. She can see my comments.
So you can leave a comment and say,
yeah, so that's my one to her, and she's looking, she can see my comments. Yeah. But this is her one to me, granted we have a comment on it.
probably read it.
Alright, well, that we can do, but that, I don't think that's going to change.
No, it won't change it.
Unless you want to send it away crazy.
Actually, make that change. Okay. All right. This ability to have conversations about the work, this is what tightens the feedback cycle. That ability there for a teacher to leave a comment on a live document that the student still has access to,
and leave a comment, and for the student to respond and the teacher to respond and have conversations about ideas in the document is that's one of the things that really speeds this process up. Now, what happens once you get this? Once you're satisfied that all of that is fixed? So the teacher's made a comment, the student's asked for clarification, the teacher's made another comment back, you've had a conversation about it. What do you do once it's all done? Resolve it. Okay, resolve it. So this comment here, after we've had our conversation, so I might come back to Lily with another comment on this and say use a dictionary, perhaps. Okay.
You spelled dictionary wrong.
How ironic. But once that gets resolved, there's a button up here that says resolve. And you click that button, and that conversation thread gets drawn away and goes and hides up here behind this button that says comments. Okay. Now that means that it's no longer showing. Get rid of that. It's no longer showing, but if you click on that comments button, all of those comment threads are still there. They don't go away. So you can always refer back to them at any point. The other thing that's useful to know about that comments button is there's another button inside there that says notifications. So you may not want to turn this on for every document you've got, but you can actually get notifications every time a comment is made on a document. Now, I wouldn't use that for every student necessarily, but there's some you might want to. What happens if you've resolved a comment and it goes up into the comments library up the top there, and you decide later on that there is actually still more that needs to be said about that? Or maybe the student has clicked the resolve button. The student thinks it's resolved, but you don't. That happens a lot. There is a tiny little link there that says reopen. Okay? So if you click that button, it will reopen the case, and now I've got the comments thread back again. And it actually tells you that it's been resolved and reopened. So it keeps a full running history of everything that's happened around that particular comment. I think you can imagine that if using this commenting feature, if you were really giving a lot of feedback on a document, that commenting section could get pretty crowded pretty quickly. Yeah. So it's a good idea to resolve things once they're resolved. Does that make sense? Okay, the second thing I want to talk to you about this in terms of, we've been leaving comments on the document. And I don't know, has anyone been actually fixing the document for Lily? Is that a good idea, do you think, to do that? In general, probably not. I think it's always better to tell a student how to fix it themselves rather than fix it for them. But let's say you did want to offer some in-document feedback. Or maybe it was a particularly weak student and you did actually want to fix the word. Maybe you needed to fix the word screamed for her so she could see how it's fixed. You needed to model that, perhaps. So every document has 3 levels of access: editing, commenting, and viewing. And the button in the top corner there is where you switch between the modes. Now, when you share a document with somebody, so if I just show you, if I click that share button, and you see the share dialog box comes up, when I type someone's name in here, so I might share it with myself and my other account there, I can choose to edit, comment, or view. And if you've used Google Docs, you're familiar with that, right? So view means they can simply see it, edit means they have full editor control, comment means that they can leave comments on it, they can actually make changes to the document, but none of those changes are locked in yet. So, let's come out of there. So if you share to someone with can comment, then what happens, I won't actually do that, but when they get it, it will open up in this mode here that says suggesting. Okay? When they're in suggesting mode, it means that any changes I make from this point, so I might fix the word screamed here. So I'll select it with my mouse and go, that should really say S-C-R-E-A-M-E-D. I go and correct it, and what it does is it inserts the correct one, but it doesn't remove the old one. I can go in here and say, I can add a paragraph marker there, and it indicates that I've made a change to insert a paragraph, or insert a line between paragraphs. With suggestion mode on, you can go and make changes to the document, but none of them are locked in until the student comes along and says, huh, screamed, hey, that's how it's spelled. All right, I accept that. And they click that button and it accepts the word screamed. Oh, sorry, I should have actually, maybe I didn't select that properly. There you go. So I'll do that. Okay. Now, I always use suggestion mode when I'm giving feedback to students in document. I never ever make changes to a document for a student unless they can see what those changes have been. Otherwise, what's the point? I'm just fixing it for them. So sometimes you will fix it for them, but they still need to know it's been fixed. So they need to be, it's really visible. Can you just take a moment to, again, on each other's documents, to switch over to suggesting mode, because you're probably in editing mode right now. Switch to suggestion mode. Make a couple of changes to some text, just so you see how it works.
Get rid of this.
Now here's an example of why you might type into a student's document. I've actually added a section down the bottom here that I felt was too long to actually add to a comment box and wasn't really specific. It wasn't a comment about any one specific thing in the story. It makes a comment that you've got a strong opening but the story loses direction towards the end. Perhaps add more detail before the last paragraph to make the ending bigger and the overall story stronger. Okay? So there's a kind of a general comment, and often that's a great place to add those general type comments is directly in the document, but please only do it with suggestion mode on so that after the student reads that, they can say, I accept that, and then they click it. Oh, it's supposed to go away. Why did that not go away? It should have gone away. Okay. I don't know what I did there. There you go. Okay, now I did it. So yeah, so add that sort of level of feedback using suggestion mode only. Does that all make sense? Okay, fantastic. I just want to show you a couple of other tools for feedback that I find really useful. One is Kaizena. Anyone use Kaizena? Okay, one hand. Excellent. So Kaizena is an add-on. Kaizen is a Japanese word that means constant improvement, and so this is an add-on called Kaizena, and it's that idea of giving students feedback so they can constantly improve. Here's the advantage of Kaizena. Let me show you. First of all, to add an add-on into Google Docs, there's a menu at the top here that says add-on. And an add-on is simply an extra feature that Google Doc has, doesn't have that you can add to it. So adding a superpower is how I call it sometimes. So I'm going to go to add-ons, go to get add-ons, and it takes me to this place called the add-ons gallery. And when it loads, please load. Okay. Play like that, is it? Is it opening for you guys? Yeah. Okay. If oh, there you go. Finally came up. So if you just search for the word Kaizena, K-I-A-Z-E-N-A, or Z for those people watching on the live stream, and do a search on that, and you should find this thing called Kaizena Mini. Now there's two versions of Kaizena. Kaizena Mini, which is an add-on, and there's also a sort of a full-blown product called Kaizena, which if you like this, I'd encourage you to go and have a look at the full one and see what you can find in there. Just want to show you the mini one for today. Once you install Kaizena Mini, by clicking on your button will be blue. So click on that, it will give you a page of permissions that will say I need permission to do the following things. Just say allow, and make it run. And once you've installed it, you'll find now when you go back to the add-on menus, it is right there in the add-on menus. Okay. Now, when you run that by saying Open Kaizena Mini, a panel will open on the right side of the screen, like. Okay. Trust me, won't happen overnight, but you know, will happen. Okay, I can see it working for some people. Charlotte, right? Yeah. Wow, that's taking forever. Right, finally, there you go. Now, here's the advantage of Kaizena over. Well, here's the advantage it gives. It does let you do text comments, exactly the same as you've been doing. So if text comments are your thing, I wouldn't use Kaizena. I would just use the built-in one in Google Doc. It's just as good. In fact, it's got the threaded conversations. I think it's even better. And there's nothing special a student needs to do. For the main reason I'd use Kaizena is it allows voice comments. So you can literally speak your comments to a student. The student's not a strong reader, doesn't like reading, just prefers to listen. If you've got a lot of feedback to give, maybe it's easier to speak it rather than type it. Is it loading for you guys?
Do the students need to have those?
They do. The students need to also install the add-on, and they need to run the add-on in order to get the comments. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Unless voice comments are really your thing, I would often just stick to the text comments.
So this won't work on an iPad. Students have it.
This will not work on an iPad. No. This is the part of the thing that won't work on an iPad. Yeah. Excellent question there for anyone who does have the ability to manage your school admin or has admin on your school domain. You can actually push extensions out to students. So yeah, you can actually make sure every student has this. Mine's not loading for me. Is it loading for you guys? Okay, so let me try and talk you through it while mine thinks about whether it's going to play or not. You should have a button there that says I'm a student, I'm a teacher. Okay? And so pick who you are. You'll probably be the teacher. And because the document, hopefully, that you're using it on is shared with somebody else, you should see underneath there your name and their name. And it says who is this feedback for? And you'll pick the student as the feedback. Yes? Yeah, I'm still loading, I can't show you. So you'll say you're a teacher, you'll choose who it is you're getting the feedback from. If you haven't shared that document with anybody, by the way, there won't be anyone in that list. So make sure you're using this on a document that you have shared with somebody. And hopefully it's the person sitting next to you. And then once you load that up, you'll see some buttons that sit around, I think they're around there. One looks like a speech bubble, that's obviously text comments. Next to it there's a microphone, that's the microphone. Click the microphone. It may ask you to allow your microphone. You might have to click an allow button so the computer can get access to the microphone. And then speak.
Chris, first time you use it, you have to set up your account. You have to register. Like you have to say where you're. Yeah, these people still do it.
Really?
Still do. Yeah.
Oh, it stopped doing that.
No, it's because you've done it more than once.
Oh,
okay. So the very first time you use it, you have to, and you'll find that probably some of you might be rejecting your school. You have to actually add your school as well as an institution. Once you've done it once, you only have to do that once, and then the process gets as simple as Chris just explained.
Okay.
From that point onwards.
My apologies. I thought they changed it so I didn't bother asking you.
No, it's only if you once you've used it.
Okay, right.
You're not that special, but.
Yep. I can hear it's working for somebody, so that's a good thing. No idea why mine's taking so long. I'll kill it and start again.
I had trouble with it in the screen yesterday.
Did you? Yeah. Oh, so you did it yesterday as well? Okay. That's the mini one you were using? Can I just have a little thumbs up if you've got managed to get that working okay? Okay, well this is obviously going to work. There's people in the room.
Here on the back channel, quite a few of us got it going, Betcher, but it did take a bit for us as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. Okay, mine's finally playing. I'm giving feedback. Continue. New feedback. Okay. Hey Lily, this opening paragraph here is great. I love the fact that you've opened with that scream sound. I would make a suggestion, maybe you don't need so many H's in there and probably not so many exclamation points. But other than that, I love the idea of a strong opening.
I know what I would do.
Okay. Hey Lily, this opening paragraph for you is great. I love the fact that you've opened with that scream sound. I would make a suggestion, maybe you don't need so many H's in there and probably not so many exclamation points. But other than that, I love the idea of a strong opening. Okay, so that's an example of how you use that. You simply select the text, add new feedback, choose whether you want a microphone, a speech bubble, and this one's interesting too. See this one with a little chain link on the end? You might have a student that continually abuses apostrophes, let's say. And you might go to YouTube and they're sick of hearing you say it. So maybe go to YouTube and find one of those great little short videos about the correct way to use apostrophes and simply use the link button. I think she has done that here somewhere. Oh, I can't find it, but somewhere in here she's done it. But let's say it's here. And you click that link and then you go and attach a YouTube video to it just by attaching a link. Just like that. Make sense?
We had a tip from Melanie in the back channel too, Betcher, to have students read their own stories out loud to hear where things go awry with punctuation as well. So thanks, Melanie, for sharing that. Great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea. Or even to buddy up in partners and have the partner read the story to them. Yeah. That self-correction feedback is really good. All right. I'm just going to close Kaizen there, and there's one last piece of feedback mechanism that I want to show you that also works really well, and that is to simply screencast it. And I've actually done this with students, especially the senior students, where as I'm literally marking their work and giving them their sort of grade on something they've done, turn the screencaster on and record myself marking the work and talk through why I'm giving them certain grades. That's also been really positive. It was a little time consuming until this tool came along. This is an extension called Screencastify. And here's what I love about Screencastify. Now, to install Screencastify, you'd need to go into the web store, the Chrome web store. So whether you're on Windows or Mac, you'll open a new tab, click on the Apps button there, and go to Web Store. If you're on a Chromebook, it's just should be right down in your search button there. And search for a thing called Screencastify. A Screencastify is not the only screen recorder that you can get that's free, but the thing I do like about this one is it also gives the option of recording the video on your machine as well. So let me show you what I mean by that. Now, I know some of you hate being on video because, I don't know, why? Why do you hate being on video?
Because if I were a student, I'd get video of me as my teacher and cut it up.
Good point, yeah. You know what, it's only tiny, it's only in the corner.
Paranoid.
Yeah, okay, point taken. Well, you have the option. So let me just get rid of this for a second. Let's say that's okay. Great. So I've installed the Screencastify extension, and now I have this little button that sits up here in my toolbar. It looks like a piece of celluloid film. And when I click it, it brings up this dialog. Oh, set up. Set up for the very first time. Allow access to my camera and microphone. And get started. Great. So, once you've set it up, it brings up this panel on the side here. And there's a couple of options to know about. First of all, are you going to capture just the tab, the whole desktop, or the camera? If you capture just the tab, it's literally only recording the active tab. Okay? Which means if you actually switch between tabs, it won't follow you around between tabs. So be aware of that. If you want to record everything, go with the desktop option, is usually the best. Desktop option also means you can record things that aren't just in Chrome. If you want to show a student how to do something in Photoshop, for example, you can do that. There's another checkbox there that says embed the webcam, and if you tick that box, it will actually activate your webcam and record you. If you don't want that to happen, don't tick the box. All right, we're ready to record. So here's how it's going to go. It's not going to give me a countdown. It's just going to start recording. Let's see if it works while we're also live streaming. This will be interesting because I don't know whether my camera's tied up or not. Let's see. Start recording. Right, I'm going to do the entire screen and we'll share that. Hi Lily, it's Mr. Betcher here. I've read this lovely story of yours and there's a few things I want to give you some feedback on. I love this opening here, really strong, but maybe just trim down the number of letters you've used there. And look, there was a typo in the front line here. That word screamed was spelled incorrectly. I fixed it for you this time, but you have got the same mistake at other parts of the document. You might want to go and check that for the word screamed. There's other really good things happening in this story, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you go and give your feedback like that, and when you're done, you click on that little button and say, oh, stop recording. Oh yeah, thanks. So, hopefully I just killed that and not the Hangout. So once you've done that, what should happen is it will now open a tab, like so, and there's the recording I just made. Mr. Betcher here. I've read this lovely story of yours. There's a few things I want to give you some feedback on. I love this opening here, really strong, but maybe just trim down the number of letters you've used there. And look, there was a typo in the front line here. That word screen was spelled incorrectly. Okay, got the idea? It's that simple. And it's free, and it runs in Chrome. You have the option of having the video or not. When you've done that, it automatically drops that video into your Google Drive. The very first time you use it, if you now go to your Google Drive and look in there, you'll now find you have, if I go to Drive, I now have a folder there called Screencastify. And inside that Screencastify folder is the recording that I just made, okay? In a format called WebM, which is an internet standard. And then that will go into your drive. That will take a moment to actually just do its thing. You can see it's just sort of preparing itself there. That will turn into a video you can play. That video, by the way, if you open that up, you have the option to go into to see it full screen, and you can do things like it's still processing. But you can actually take that video link and you can send that video link to parents if you want. You can send it back to the student. You could take the video and embed it somewhere. So a student might have say a Google site that you use for a portfolio. You might want to embed your feedback in the portfolio site. There's a whole bunch of ways you could possibly use that recording to give it back to the student for feedback. Does that make sense? Okay. Do you want a couple of minutes to try that out? Oh gosh, how time flies. We're at 10:46. So guys, I'm going to get you to wrap up. I hope there was a couple of ideas in there that you found useful. You know, as well as the techniques we talked about of using the commenting features and the conversational commenting features, you've also got voice comments, you've got the screencasting ability, and all of that is just to try and tighten that cycle up so you get quality feedback to kids quicker so they can do something about it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Betcher. And thanks everyone for watching us all around the world. Betcher, you were so engaging. Everyone was following along and making copies in the back channel. So thank you so much for helping us try out some of these things. We did have a question. George was wondering, can you go back and see suggestions just like you can go see your comment history?
Yes, the suggestions, if you close off a suggested change to a document, it also goes into the comment history.
No worries. Thanks, Wendy. See you later.